for starting late. Obviously, we look like we're nervous and sweaty, but we just had our swearing in ceremony, which was extremely hot. So that was why we were a little bit delayed starting. So let's call to order the regular council meeting on Monday, June 7th here at 7 p.m. It's streamed obviously through Zoom due to COVID-19. Just for anyone watching, a reminder that if they have any questions regarding anything on tonight's agenda, they can send it to townofstandrews.ca, and Town of St. Andrews, it's ST for St. Andrews. All right, at this point, I'm going to do a recording of attendance. I note that we're off to a good start. All members of council are here for our first meeting, so thanks everybody. At this time, we'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda, but I'm hoping that I have someone to move and second in regarding to adding a closed session under the Local Governance Act, section 68(1)(c, as information that could cause financial loss or gain to a person or the local government, or could jeopardize negotiations leading to an agreement or contract. So I'll be looking for someone to move to amend the agenda to allow for the closed session.
I so move.
Okay, I heard from Councillor Heenan, and I also saw Councillor Blanchard. Are you seconding that?
I'll second that.
Okay, so any conversation in regards to the amendment? Seeing none, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amendment to the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. So at this point, now that we've amended the agenda, we still have to approve the agenda. So I'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda at this point.
I so move.
I see Councillor Akaji, and then Councillor Gumashal, are you seconding?
Yes.
Okay, I've got a seconder. Anything else on the agenda? Any other amendments? Any other changes? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the approval of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 And that is unanimous, so that is carried. All right, so if we're moving along here, we see that there's actually no presentations this evening. We will have a series of them in upcoming meetings, but for first meeting, we just want to get obviously underway. But we do have some minutes to approve from previous meetings. So the first one, yep.
You need to call disclosure of conflict of
Oh,
interest.
sorry. There we go. Is there any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none. Okay. At this point, we'll move ahead to the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. So I'm looking for someone to move that the minutes of the 210503 regular meeting of council on May 3rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. be adopted.
I so move.
Okay, I saw Councillor Neal first, a seconder, Councillor Hurdle. Perfect. Any changes to any of those minutes? Anything coming out of it? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 And that was everybody. So those have been passed. The next minutes are the minutes of the 210515 or 210517 special meeting of council on May 7th, 2021 at 6 p.m. to be adopted. Do I have someone move?
I so move.
I see Councillor Neal first and the seconder, Councillor Blanchard. Perfect. Any other amendments to those? Any concerns? Seeing none, so we'll call the question. All those in favor of that motion for the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 And that was everyone carried. So all the minutes have been passed. At this point, we're going to jump into communications. There's none for today. I will just make council aware quickly that we received a grant of $6,000 today. There was a letter from the Department of Tourism, Heritage and Culture to the town of St. Andrews in support of its Inclusive Community Recreation Infrastructure Fund. So those are going to be used for accessible picnic tables, if I'm correct, Mr. Knopper, within the community. So we'll be talking where those are, but Market Square and a few locations like that should get some accessible picnic tables, which is great to see as we become a more inclusive community for all. So I just wanted to pass that on to council. At this point, we'll move on to the staff reports, and to present the staff report, I will pass it over for all staff reports to our CAO, Mr. Spear.
Thank you, Worship. I consider myself privileged to welcome the next council for the town of St. Andrews to your first regular meeting. Over the next 4 years, we'll have many meetings together to tackle the challenges and opportunities before us. I look forward to carrying out the direction of this council. While staff would love to ease you into your mandate, the delayed election results and a few outstanding items from the last council before you mean you'll hit the ground running. One of the first items is the election of a deputy mayor. This is more than a ceremonial role. You need to be knowledgeable of both the affairs of the town and the service commission, as you could be called to step in for a variety of reasons. Before you accept the nomination for that position, be committed to the extra effort that is required for this role. Also before you tonight is the banking resolution to set up signing officers for your mandate. As per Section 77 of the Local Governance Act, payments are signed jointly by the mayor or designate and the treasurer designate. We have a few items that should be addressed over the next several weeks to provide direction to staff, the community, other levels of government, or external organizations. Kelly Cove Salmon would like to present again for their conceptual plans to build a hatchery in the Champlain Industrial Park that would draw well water from the Shamcook watershed area. We need to amend the vehicular traffic bylaw to allow for one-way traffic this summer, plus reconsider the schedule of fines. With the Planning Advisory Committee being brought back to St. Andrews, we need to finalize the agreement with the Regional Service Commission, finalize the third reading of the PAC bylaw, and put out a call for potential committee members. We need to review the next phase of the Wharf refurbishment project, review next steps in the Van Horn Trail upgrade project, a review of the designated highway funding application to be submitted by the end of this month, and consideration for the farmers market to expand on Water Street on Thursdays. Staff endeavor to complete a complete background report for you to have enough information to decide on coming into a council meeting. The green paper on local governance reform is also before you, but due to the fast approaching deadline for that, which is the end of this month, I recommend you make a personal submission instead of as a council. With the delay between the May 10th election and the results released on May 25th, staff were busy with an abbreviated period to do an orientation. On Saturday, May 29th, council and staff went through a staff-led orientation session for 7 hours. We went through a lot of information on the mechanisms of local government and not on the priorities and opportunities for this council. We appreciate the commitment you made to coming and get a basic understanding of your new role and responsibilities. The clerk and I had several meetings in the month to meet with various stakeholders regarding housing, including funders and developers. The meetings are in preliminary stages for all parties to gather information, but once there are actual proposals for council's consideration, they will be brought to you. We realize that we are short housing in general and in desperate need for affordable housing and are focused on such by staff. We keep investigating any lead we can pursue that could lead to a more housing inventory. The construction season on road and in-ground infrastructure has started with a goal to complete by the end of June. However, the weather is hampering this in the first week of June. We are hopeful we can meet that deadline. We currently are replacing sewer lines at the head of King Street and water and sewer lines, plus 4 catch basins for stormwater on Sophia Street. The paving crew will be on Mary Street and Edward Street this year. The official opening for the Wellness Center took place in early May, and wish to express our thanks to Dr. Peer, Dr. Levesque Taylor, and Annette Harlan for opening up the physician suites for tours. It is a fine facility, and are extremely grateful for the Dunn Foundation in partnering with us. I would also like to thank CHCO for covering the event and providing a streaming video for those unable to attend. The 2020 audit is near completion. Although we hope to have it before you at our first meeting session of council, I determined it best to wait, as a partner from the firm usually provides an in-depth discussion for your benefit. We will arrange this later in the month so council can approve in June or early July. The mayor and staff continue to work with representatives from the province of New Brunswick on continuing the nuisance hunt this year. We are discussing an initiative to expand the hunt that would help increase the number of animals harvested. More information will follow in the next couple of weeks. Paddlefest also occurred during the long weekend in May that brought a welcome relief from the year of COVID. Set in smaller venues this year, all shows sold out quickly, and from all accounts, it was a success. As we rolled into May, staff have been busy with construction season, prepping the town for summer, meeting with community stakeholders, and maintaining the assets of the town of St. Andrews. The operations manager has been overseeing the various projects, including the larger infrastructure projects mentioned above, the replacement of the sidewalk at the arena, repairing the liner at the sewage lagoon, and the final touches on the Elizabeth Street Park. We ordered tables and benches for the new park, but problems in the supply chain may delay these until summer. The clerk prepared for the swearing in, as well as working with the CAO in preparing and executing council orientation. He worked with Public Works and the Wharf to design and document a Wharf parking policy. Users will notice more painted spaces and rules are being implemented that will turn over spaces more frequently to allow for more availability of parking for the multitude of users. He also prepared several mailings to Aboriginal nations in regards to our major projects, the Wharf and the Van Horn Trail. The bylaw enforcement officer continues to monitor for parking violations to promote safety. In a vast majority of instances, he issues warning tickets to let you know where you park is illegal to take an educational approach. However, if you park in front of a hydrant, on a crosswalk, or an accessible parking spot without the proper permit, he will issue a ticket. He has been busy working with property owners whose premises are falling under unsafe and unsightly premises. We prefer to work with the individuals to get their property tidied up. The fire department personnel put in cumulatively 24 hours of response time this month, plus an additional 79 hours in training. Chief Terrio hosted level 1 firefighter exams on behalf of various departments in Charlotte County. We are always grateful for the time commitment of our volunteers. The Service Commission staff have been collaborating with the clerk and I on reviewing the building bylaw. This has been prioritized because of changes to the provincial legislation from which our bylaw is empowered. In this reporting period, the Planning Review and Adjustments Committee reviewed 3 files related to St. Andrews, all variances. At the end of May, there were $2 million in building permits issued, and that's in total construction, not in fees. There will be noticeable changes to the Wharf parking arrangements this summer as we have painted lines to create more spots, but also issuing permits to users so only they and authorized staff can park through the day. Some stops will have limited parking times too. With the start of a new council comes excitement, revitalization, and anticipation as we look forward to you restating our priorities and working together to accomplish them. On behalf of our staff, welcome to the team. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Spear. Attached, we have in our package, we have all staff reports as well as the financial reports. We will be having a work session in the near future on the financial reports, just so we can go into it in more detail before we do our strategic priorities. But at this point, I'll be looking for a motion for council to accept all the staff reports and financial reports as presented.
I'll put the motion forward, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Heen. I see a seconder with Councillor Neal. Is that correct? Okay. Is there any questions or anything that came out of the staff reports at this particular time? Of course, you can at any time reach out to our CAO or clerk for any clarification. Seeing none, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the staff reports, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everybody. So those have been accepted. All right, so moving along, we're now into the introduction, consideration, and passing of bylaws and motions. The first one would be under finance and administration. Just so councilors aware, the next week I'm going to be having some conversations with each individual and kind of finding out which of the portfolios you're most interested in and lining those up. So that'll be coming this week. I'll be just randomly for this evening assigning councilors to motions, but the first motion tonight I'll actually take simply for the fact that it's in regards to the deputy mayor. So if you'll allow me, the background under reference number FA 210605 would be the appointment of the deputy mayor for the town of St. Andrews. The background is that at the first regular meeting of council, a deputy mayor must be voted on and appointed. Bylaw number 1603, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of the Town of St. Andrews states in part, Section 5.1, council shall at the first meeting and at the subsequent time, the position of deputy mayor is vacant, elect a councillor or deputy mayor for the term of council. Section 5.2 says councillors may be nominated or self-nominated to the position of deputy mayor. So again, you can either be nominated or self-nominated. And section 5.3 states that any councillor may refuse to be nominated as deputy mayor should you decide that you would not like that role and you are nominated. So I'll now proceed with the nomination process for deputy mayor. And because this is at a public meeting, we will have to do all by a show of hands. There's no silent vote when it comes to council. I'll also call the question, just like a lot of boards and things that people may serve on, I'm going to call the question 3 times for nominations. So at this particular time, I'll be looking for someone to either nominate or self-nominate a candidate for deputy mayor. Okay, I see a hand from Councillor Blanchard first.
Thanks, your worship. I'd like to nominate Councillor Neal for the office
Okay.
of deputy mayor.
Councillor Neal, would you like to be in consideration for deputy mayor?
I will accept the nomination. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see next I saw Councillor Gumachel's hand. Would you like to nominate someone for deputy mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to nominate Councillor Akaji for the role of deputy mayor. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, and Councillor Akaji, would you accept this nomination?
I will accept the nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Akaji. So is there any other, I'll call it a second time. Is there any other nominations for deputy mayor for the town of St. Andrews? Okay, I'm going to call it one last time, and then we will we'll go to a show of hands for deputy mayor after that. Is there any other nominations for deputy mayor for the town of St. Andrews? All right, so at this point, we have two councillors that are in your consideration for deputy mayor. We have Councillor Neal and Councillor Akaji. It's not mandatory, but before we go to vote, we'll do the motion after by inserting the name. So we can do the, just for process, Mr. Dopp, we can do a show of hands before we read the blank motion, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, before we did, you don't feel obligated, but if anyone would like to add anything for commentary, I would open the floor of that before we go to the vote. Okay, so at this point, we are going to transition to a show of hands. I will go in alphabetical order, so in no particular order, just alphabetical order by the councillors, it'll be a show of hands, and then we will call the second councillor's name, and then it'll again be a show of hands. If it is a tie, the tiebreaker, obviously, as we're all aware, in the case of council, is the mayor. So in this case, we will start with a show of hands for anyone who would like Councillor Akaji to be the deputy mayor of the town of St. Andrews. Please raise your hand now. I'm counting 3. I've got Councillor Gumachel, Councillor Heenan, and Councillor Hurdle. At this
Your
point,
worship, the nominees should be voting too, just so we're clear on that.
oh, okay, sounds good. So let's do that one last time to clarify. If you're nominated, you must vote. Show of hands for Councillor Akaji. I'm seeing Councillor Gumachel, Councillor Heenan, and Councillor Hurdle in favor. At this point, we will switch to votes for Councillor Neal. For those that would like Councillor Neal to be the deputy mayor, please raise your hand. I'm seeing,
For myself, so I'm going to vote for Councillor Neal.
pardon?
I don't want to vote for myself, so I'm going to vote for Councillor Neal.
You do have the ability though to vote for yourself, just to be clear.
Okay, then I'll vote for myself.
Yeah, you could abstain. So just one more time, a vote for Councillor Neal. Raise your hands. Okay, so I'm seeing 2 hands. I've got Councillor Blanchard and Councillor Neal. So should just for procedure, should we clarify Councillor Akaji's vote, or would it be
Your worship,
All right,
please.
just one more time, just a show of hands for Counselor Akaji. I'm seeing Counselor Gumashell, Counselor Akaji, Counselor Hurdle, and Counselor Heenan. So at this point, by a vote of 4-2, majority of council has voted in favor of Counselor Akaji to be deputy mayor of the town of St. Andrews. So at this point, I'm going to be inserting Counselor Akaji's name into the motion, and then it will take, we'll do the vote to make it official at this point. So first of all, before we get in the motion, I'm delighted to see both of you raise your hand. The good news is with the council that I've already got to meet you. It certainly bids well for the future of this town. So thank you for everybody for voting on that. So at this time, the motion reads that the town of St. Andrews Council appoints Counselor Akaji as the deputy mayor of the town of St. Andrews for the duration of the 2021 to 2025 term of council, and with all the rights and responsibilities associated. So at this point, I'll look for someone to move for that motion. I see Counselor Neal. Thank you, Counselor Neal, the seconder. I see Counselor Gumashell next. So that's been seconded. At this point, any other conversation? Any other discussion? Seeing none, so we'll call the question. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Congratulations, Deputy Mayor Akaji.
Thank you very much, and I hope I can fulfill the term with your backing.
And I'm planning soon to go on vacation for about a month. So we'll,
Thanks for the warning.
okay, so at this point, I was going to pass over F&A, so Finance Administration, to Counselor Akaji. So I was wondering, Counselor Akaji, or sorry, Deputy Mayor Akaji, if you would read the background and motion for the next one.
Sure. FA 210602, May 26, 2021, and it's signing authority for the new council. So the background is, when there is a change in the signing officers, either through an election or change of an officer, a council resolution identifying the amended signing officers must be made. As per the Local Governance Act, the mayor or designate and the treasurer or designate must sign any bank documentation, and the mayor or deputy mayor and clerk or deputy clerk sign any contracts, deeds, and official documentations of the corporation. So motion number 1 says, be it resolved that accounts in the name of the town of St. Andrews, hereafter called the corporation, be kept at the Bank of Nova Scotia, hereinafter called the bank, and the mayor or deputy mayor, together with the treasurer or assistant treasurer, are hereby authorized for and in the name of the corporation to sign, make, draw, accept, endorse, and deliver checks, promissory notes, bills of exchange, orders for the payment of money, and such agreements and instruments as may be necessary or useful in connection with the operation of the said accounts. That any one of the above mentioned officers is hereby authorized for and in the name of the corporation to endorse and transfer to the bank for deposit or discount with or collection by the bank, but for credit for the corporation only, checks, promissory notes, bills of exchange, orders for payment or of money and other instruments to arrange, settle, balance, and certify all books and accounts with the bank, and to sign receipts and vouchers. That a signature card for all accounts of the corporation shall be signed by the above mentioned officers, filled with the bank, and shall be in the following forms: Bradley Henderson, Mayor, or Catherine Akaji, Deputy Mayor, and Chris Spear, CAO, Treasurer, or Emily Nodden, Assistant Treasurer.
Okay, so Counselor Akaji has moved that motion. Could I
Moved by
get?
me, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, moved by Deputy Mayor. Sorry, it'll take me a little bit, Akaji, to get into that habit. I'm sure you'll call me Deputy Mayor Henderson a few times too. So at this point, I'll be looking for a seconder for that motion. I saw Councillor Blanchard, second. And then at this point, any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 You opposed? Seeing none, and that is carried. Deputy Mayor Akaji, motion number 2.
Okay. Motion number 2 says, corporate resolution. Be it resolved that the clerk or assistant clerk be authorized to sign with the mayor or deputy mayor and affix the corporate seal to all deeds, contracts, and official documents of the town of St. Andrews that the corporation of the town of St. Andrews may be party to, which are not prescribed by bylaw, statute, or reestablished practices to be signed by some other officer.
Okay,
By me, sorry.
so yep, moved by Deputy Mayor. Could I have a seconder? I see Councillor Heenan with his
Yes.
hand up first. Thank you very much, Councillor Heenan. Any discussion around that motion?
None.
None. So at this point, we'll call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody. Thank you very much. That motion has passed. Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Akaji. I gave you, or Deputy Mayor Akaji, I gave you the long one to read. At this point, we are switching over to Public Works, but before we get into the motion, first, there's a 5-year municipal plan designated highway improvement discussion that I'll pass over at this point to, I believe, CAO Spear.
Thank you, Your Worship. So council, I'll step back a little bit. So within a lot of municipalities, main highways of the province of New Brunswick are still, the cost of them are covered by the province itself. So in St. Andrews, on both sides of the 127 from the property line, which is the Clark Road, to the corner by Tim Hortons or Bayside and Mowat and Reed Avenue all intersect there. That's actually provincially owned highway. We need to get permission to make any changes to it. But they do pay us, I think it's around $15,000 a year to plow it and maintain the shoulders and things like that. So they put out a call every year to do improvements to the road. And we've done a few in the last 7 or 8 years, where you'll notice we put in the rock ditches was part of that program. And then we've paved some of it a little bit too. But the fairly recently, the funding for that dropped significantly, and we haven't had any funding since 2018. So every spring, the government puts out a call for improvements you'd like to see done. Just because of the election period and the little time we had to get together to discuss the highway, it's staff's recommendation that we just resubmit the plan that was put in last year. The funding will come, and if the funding may come, and if the funding does come, we can relook at it. However, the first project that we're looking at this year is about $400,000 to expand by Marine Science Drive and to create a turning lane along there. But again, if we get approval for the funding, which will be later this fall, that the project itself probably won't take place until next spring before it's decided, we could have a chance to review and resubmit to the department if we think there's a better suited for it. But it has to be spent on those 2 stretches of road of Highway 127. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Open it up to council if you have any particular questions on this. Not seeing any. So CAO Spear, are you just looking for council just to give indication of continued support of this particular plan?
That would be it, Your Worship, but we're going to be having one other meeting, and if council wishes to sit on it till the next meeting, that's perfectly fine, but we do have to have it submitted by the end of this month or it'll be out of luck. So
Okay.
that's up to you if you want to make a motion now and we can just submit it this week.
It's really council's pleasure. I have no problem just on the next meeting, make it an official motion, and then we could just vote on it then if it's not putting you behind. Okay, if all council's good on that, just so we advertise it, kind of put it in writing what the motion is, that way council will have one, we'll call it one more meeting just to look it over. I'm sure everyone has looked it over, but thank you very much for that, Mr. Spear. At this time, we'll jump ahead. We have the next motion, and I think for Public Works, I'll choose Councillor Heenan to read his first motion.
Oh my, okay. Law to regulate the vehicle traffic in the town of St. Andrews, PW 210605. Recommended motion that councillor amends Schedule C, one-way street in bylaw number 18-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicle traffic in the town of St. Andrews to approves Water Street to be designated as one-way traffic in the easterly direction from Edward Street to Frederick Street, starting June the 25th, 2021 to September the 7th, 2021. The council amends Schedule B, no parking anytime in bylaw 1801, a bylaw to regulate vehicle traffic in the town of St. Andrews for no parking anytime between June 25th and September the 7th, 2021 for the following. Elizabeth Street from Water Street to Queen Street on the south side, Edward Street from Water Street to Queen Street on the south side, William Street from Water Street to Queen Street on the south side, Princess Royal Street from Water Street to Queen Street on the south side, Queen Street from Elizabeth Street to Princess Royal Street on the north side. Recommended motion that council amends Schedule B, no parking anytime in bylaw number 18-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicle traffic in the town of St. Andrews for no parking anytime at 24 King Street, St. Andrews, to replace the current parking with bicycle parking.
All right. So thank you very much, Councillor Heenan. At this particular time, I will probably go for some clarifying before we provide input. Did anyone have any questions for staff? That's probably, especially for the newer councillors, there might be a few clarifying questions. So I'll open up the floor if anyone had any questions for staff. I see Councillor Blanchard first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did have a quick question here on, I just pull it up here. With regards to the no parking on Elizabeth, Edward, William, Prince Royal, and Queen Street. I know that there was no parking essentially last summer on Water, so I expect that a large number of people who would have parked on Water would have been pushed up onto the side streets. Just wondering about the issue of parking on both sides of the street and the decrease, I guess, in the road and the ability to get through. Was that something that was just sort of noticed last year, or has this been a continuous issue year over year prior to what would have been COVID type of restrictions or the changes that were made last year?
I may, Your Worship.
Yes.
So
Sorry. Yeah.
it certainly made worse last year because of the parking issue, but on a busy summer day, there is parking all over town. They tend to go up to 3 or 4 blocks deep. And so we're finding that there's only one-way traffic essentially that was allowed on these, we call them shorts, but the ones that run perpendicular to Water Street. And if you had 2 vehicles parked on both sides, even pulled in quite a ways, you couldn't get 2 vehicles down the road. So it's just for safety's sake. And especially if you get a truck or someone in a Winnebago or a trailer, it's really hard for them to even make the corner if there's traffic on both sides.
Thank you.
I saw Councillor Heenan's hand as well.
I'm just, as I say, just sworn in an hour ago, so I have to ask the question. We are allowing parking, correct, Your Worship and Mr. Spear? We're allowing parking on Water Street with the one-way traffic. Am I correct on this?
That is correct. You would have parking on both sides of the
Yes.
street, with exception of town council did give staff the authority to reach encroachment agreements with individual businesses with a walk around. And I believe that there's 3 or 4 businesses that are pursuing that option.
Yes.
But generally speaking, on both sides of the road, there will be parking allowed on market day to be determined, but right now they're blocking off in front of that area just because of the amount of traffic. I think we all would definitely support that on that particular day. So, but yes, parking will be on both sides of the street, unless this council feels differently. With that being said, if we did feel differently, we would be in a major time crunch to make it visually appealing. We'd be pretty limited at this point.
Well, it's just that I've had concerns brought to me, and to hear that both sides is parking is absolutely phenomenal for me.
Perfect.
From my point of view, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other I see Councillor Akaji, or Deputy Mayor Akaji. It'll come eventually.
I have a question. If there's parking on both sides of the street and it's a one-way street, we'll be parking the same way on the one-way street, like they won't be able to turn
No.
around and park the other way, right?
Correct. It'll be like downtown Fredericton when you're on their one ways. It's both.
Yeah.
Everyone's facing the same way. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right. So, oh, sorry. I see a couple more hands. Councillor Agumichel.
Sorry, I just remind this council that the parking doesn't really address anything COVID. It's just a traffic flow issue. We still don't really have a COVID plan in place, particularly for the weekends when it gets particularly busy downtown. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Agumichel. I think I saw maybe Councillor Neal's hand.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a question for CAO Spear. If there was any thought or provision gone into like cycling traffic with the one-way street. I know typically the cyclists are supposed to obey the one-way street, but I did witness that a few times last year with bikes coming the opposite way. And I was just thinking now from a safety perspective with cars parking on both sides of the street, particularly on that left-hand side with cars pulling out, they may not naturally see a cyclist coming. So I was just wondering if there's any thought to that. Are we going to try and enforce that a bit stronger? Or?
Yeah, so even last year, Councillor Neal, we tried to enforce it when we saw it, staff, usually the bylaw enforcement officer, but if I was walking down the street and I noticed people bicycling against traffic, I'd remind them that you better get turned around. It is a good point that you got traffic coming out both sides. It is going to be a little more dangerous. Speeds is not much a concern. That usually in the summer, things are moving so slow that bicyclists can probably blow by cars, the truth be told, even poor cyclists like me. But Councillor Agumichel would probably be better to warn some of his cyclist friends that maybe better stick close to the center lane. I'm not sure when there's parking on both sides where the safest part is. But honestly, if it was me, I'd probably be more tempted to use one of the side streets like Queen or Montague and not go down Water Street on a busy summer's day. But each of the bicyclists will have to be aware of that on their own. Certainly with kids, we've got these lovely paved trails that go on for kilometers, and for safety sakes, if you're not an experienced bicyclist, I'd highly recommend that you take one of those off-road trails that you won't have to contend with any of that.
Great, thank you.
See another question from Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. Just one reminder about the bicycling. What I see happening is people opening car doors. They never see the bicycler. So it's always an issue. I find, like, you know, people they got kids, like, it doesn't mean just kids, but everybody opens their door, right? And if you're biking close to the cars, it can happen. So I'm kind of along with Mr. Spear that the center of the road's probably the correct place to be if you're a bicycler. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can maintain speed, I guess would be the thing there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if any more questions for staff, we'll just clarify the motion and then we'll get into debate on it on page 98, correct? The motion is that council amend Schedule C one-way street and bylaw number 18-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicular traffic in the town of St. Andrews, to approve Water Street to be designated as one-way traffic in an easterly direction from Edward Street to Frederick Street starting June 25th, 2021 to September 7th, 2021. So I just want to confirm a mover on that. Would that be Councillor Heenan?
Yes, please.
And a seconder at this point.
I'll second it.
I see Deputy Mayor Akaji. So at this point, I'll open it up for debate on this motion. If anyone would like to add anything to this at this point before we call the question.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
You, by all means, you can, Deputy Mayor.
This means that when the transport trucks are parking like Cisco or whatever, and it's one way, if you're parked where Cisco stops, you have to stay there till they're finished their unloading, correct?
That's correct. It is a recommendation of the future. We haven't addressed that yet. We should have unloading zones, but you're right with, it's still going to be a bit more perilous than last year because then you'll have cars going in both lanes going around with cars parked on both sides, but that is correct.
Okay.
And it's to CAO's point, it's legitimate concern, but the previous council, just to bring everyone to speed, received a master transportation plan. But unfortunately, there wasn't enough time to dive into that. This council will be reviewing that document and making recommendations, but it probably likely with timing wouldn't really have an opportunity to take effect probably until summer of 2022. As you generally speaking, you don't want to be making major changes in June and July and August in downtown St. Andrews.
Your worship?
Yep.
I just would like to add one point. Just that in any given time of the year now, if people are parked and a transport truck is stopped in the middle of the road, the vehicles are stuck there until the transport truck is complete. So it wouldn't really change much of what's already. The one-way street actually allows just for traffic to be able to go around flow nicely. So
That's good clarifying, Mr. Knopper. Any other debate on this motion? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Wonder if Councillor Heenan, if you don't mind reading the next motion on page 99.
Page 99. Public Works. Is that the Public Works, Your Honor? The council, yes.
It would
Your
be
worship.
it'd be that council amends Schedule
Yes.
B, that one, yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. That council amends Schedule B, no parking anytime in bylaw number 18-01, A bylaw to regulate vehicle traffic in the town of St. Andrews for no parking anytime between June 25th and September the 7th of 2021 for the following: Elizabeth Street from Water Street to Queen Street on the south side, Edward Street from Water Street to Queen Street on the south side, William Street from Water Street to Queen Street on the south side, Princess Royal Street from Water Street to Queen Street on the south side, Queen Street from Elizabeth Street to Princess Royal Street on the north side.
Okay, I'll thank you for moving on that, Councillor Heenan. I'll look for a seconder on that motion. Seeing Councillor Blanchard next. So at this point, any additional questions or input on this particular motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, Your Worship.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that was carried. All right, and now if you would proceed, Councillor Heenan, with the next motion.
Yes, that council amends Schedule B, no parking anytime in bylaw number 18-01, A bylaw to regulate vehicle traffic in the town of St. Andrews for no parking anytime at 24 King Street, St. Andrews, to replace the current parking with bicycle parking.
Thank you very much. Any questions or sorry, I'll look for a seconder on that first. I see Councillor Hurdle so seconder with Councillor Hurdle. Now questions or input on that particular motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion? Oh, sorry, my fault. Councillor Heenan.
I just want to say that I think this is a great idea where we have the bicycle rentals up at the Algonquin. And I think that that council has made a wise decision for the business and for the places to park for bicycles. And I so appreciate whoever did the work on this, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heenan. I appreciate the input. Any other councillors? I will call the question. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that is everybody. So that motion has been carried. And it is important to note that bicycle parking and increasing it is part of our municipal plan. So that was a step in the right direction now that you passed that for our municipal plan. All right, so that I believe wraps up that particular portfolio, and have nothing for public safety. At this time, it is business, tourism, heritage, and culture, but it is 2021 St. Andrews Farmers Market request use of Water Street, and that is a discussion. So at this point, once again, we'll pass it over to CAO, Mr. Spear.
Thank you, Your Worship. So there's been a request from the farmers market. They've had a lot of challenges doing COVID because under the current restrictions, they have to be 6 feet apart. And so where they could have 3 vendors, they're basically down to 1. So they've managed it with last year, but they said there's potentially more interest this year. And so in discussions with them, and the staff thought at the time it was a good idea, but we'll have a further discussion, was they'd like the council to consider closing off Water Street from the corner by the bank, so King and Water, all the way to the Kennedy Park parking lot, so all their guests can get in and out. And so that would allow them to park, to set their stalls in the streets, but they would agree to keep the stalls on the parking side of the streets, and so that fire vehicles or what have you, or ambulance and stuff can still get through the downtown in a hurry. So barricades could be lifted if we needed for an emergency vehicle to get access. What they wouldn't plan on is to be allowing delivery trucks, which is a bit of a concern during that day. That we did have owners say there's up to 5 delivery trucks that come in the morning during the summer to deliver alcohol and food provisions to the restaurant along the section of town. And we thought we had it worked out that they could call down Frederick Street and then back into the remaining portion of water that, you know, back towards the Kennedy Inn. And so we thought we had it all worked out, but in sober thought, since we've looked at this, staff does have a couple of concerns, I guess. Number one is that anyone driving down King Street is going to be blocked, because as you come down King Street, if you get the one way on the right-hand side and you got the barricade on the left, all you can do is head out to the wharf. Market Square is closed. And so somebody coming in at like 10 in the morning is going to be stuck on the wharf until 2 o'clock in the afternoon before they can get turned. And there's doesn't seem to be any real simple way to do that. And well, we originally said that, you know, we could just take down the barricade by Frederick Street for the one way. So for the one way to work, we have barricades set up at every block. So if people are coming down, they aren't swinging the wrong direction by accident. But if we're trying to operate with one-way traffic most of the summer, probably allowing it one morning a week to go back to 2-way is a really bad idea. And so while we think the initiative is good, we just don't think logistically and safely it can really work. So unfortunately, it'd be my recommendation that we reject their request for this year, especially under the green phase that is coming in, that they will be able to add more vendors or get their vendors closer together by mid-July, hopefully. And while this would be ideal, they still have a few special markets through the summer where they do close off part of King and thing. And so they will be able to operate under those conditions. But right now, with the one way, I don't think it's safe for them to partition that portion of water out. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, CAO Spear. At this particular time, since it is a discussion item, I will be looking for consensus from council to probably support, at this point, I'll say support staff's recommendation to decline this particular ask, which would be to essentially close Water Street in front of the market. I'm just going to get some consensus around, so I'll go to each individual councillor just to make sure I hear from everybody. You don't necessarily have to do debate, but you know, your vote or how you're seeing it would be great. And I'll start with Deputy Mayor Akaji.
I can't see this working unless you blocked off half of King Street. But even then, the people that are coming down Water Street that can't go any further on Water Street would have to turn left onto King. So, yeah, and I don't think it's going to work. So I think what staff is recommending is what we should follow, that perhaps not this year. We need a little more thought and a little more time, and maybe a widening of the street, which can't be happening. So I don't think it will work. I can't see it, but then I don't see in 3D. So I recommend Mr. Spear's suggestion that we don't do that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Akagi. Councillor Gumashell.
Thank you, Worship. I'd follow staff's recommendation on this, I guess, but I'd remind all council that there was a proposal to close the street off completely from Thursday morning until Sunday, and making it a walking street that came forward in the last council, and was kind of put off due to lack of time to really implement it. I think maybe if we reached out to the local businesses and saw if there was any support for that idea. I know that there's some costs involved in manning the gates, but just from the Leather House to the Savesy, so just those 2 blocks, you'd still be able to access the Wharf at King, and it would make Water Street much more walkable, much more COVID friendly, much easier to socially distance, because COVID's certainly not past us. But even moving forward after COVID, I think that anything we can do to increase the walkability downtown will allow us to get more people downtown, and certainly more people is better for business and makes businesses able to better survive the long and bleak winters that we have when there's absolutely no one downtown. So walkability plan, I don't know what we called it before, but certainly it came forward as a, dawn to dusk, Thursday to Sunday. And then the other parts of the week, it would be, I guess at this point, it would revert back to just one way. So I would hope the staff could reach out to local businesses and maybe get some feedback on that. Thank you, Worship.
Sounds good, Councillor Gumashell. We'll make note of that as part of the master transportation plan to talk about a more walkable downtown versus one that's primarily by traffic flow. So that way the road itself can be closed, to your point. So we'll make note of that, CAO Spear. At this point, I'll go over to Councillor Blanchard.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. When I actually read this, I was in favor of it. I mean, I still am. I certainly understand the CEO's concerns about how this would actually work. My concern, I guess, is having some assurances, I guess, for the market and for the small cottage industries that sort of depend on that they're going to be able to have the space that they need, have the vendor space that they need to be able to survive another summer, where we hope we're out of restrictions. We hope we're into green, but I don't know that we're guaranteed anything just yet. I certainly recognize that there are issues. I wonder, are there any possible hybrid models where would we be able to extend out partially into the street, eliminating traffic on both sides, obviously, through that section, but perhaps just allowing a single lane of traffic to pass through there? I don't know if there's an option for that, to allow at least some traffic to move through there with some kind of a barrier system similar to what we had last year. I don't know how much that would benefit the market. I don't know if that would give them the additional space required, but I'm just trying to think of different ways that we could somehow ensure that they have the space that they need. I really like, again, what Councillor Gumashell had talked about in terms of turning not all of Water Street perhaps, but at least portions of it into more of a walking area, pedestrian traffic only. I think there's something to that as well. But I really did, I was hopeful anyways that we might be able to work something out here for the market and allowing them to extend out into that area. But again, I defer to the CAO and to the staff, but I wonder if there is something, a hybrid, some kind of model that we could possibly look at to at least give something to the market so they can extend some space. Thank you.
So thank you, Councilor Blash. So I'm hearing that obviously you'll follow staff recommendation, but if there's a follow-up model that could be presented to us, you'd love to hear the opportunity. So Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, your worship, and thank you, Mr. Spear, for the input on that. I, like Councillor Blanchard, was in favor of it when I read it until I heard the reasons why. And I must say that I think what we want is we really want a downtown busy core. I understand that, but I think we're trying to put like a sausage in a hot dog wrapper. Like, I think you can't squash anything more on Water Street. I think that we are at capacity with the one way and the parking on both sides, and I don't think it can take any more stress. I think what Mr. Spear has proposed on this short notice is ideal for this year. We would have next year to analyze it. If we are not in the green zone by next year, then we can take another look at it. But for this year, I'm in total favor of Mr. Spear's recommendation. Thank you, your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan and Councillor Hurdle.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a question, if that's okay, your worship.
It is.
This could be a question that's been asked every year, since time immemorial, but I had a look at some of the traffic studies, and I tend to notice that deliveries to the downtown core tend to coincide with spikes with tourist traffic and pedestrian traffic and vehicles coming in everyone wants to come to town for at the exact same time. Have there been any studies, have there been any looks at alternate arrangements for deliveries to downtown that can be spread out in a way that doesn't impact businesses and take away from that downtown core experience? Because, I echo Councillor Gumichel and Councillor Blanchard's comments and I believe that, more vibrant communities are more pedestrian friendly or accessibility friendly communities. Just to get people to just be outside is a real focus for us. So is there any information available there?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's one that actually we've had in the past. For example, if you go to downtown Halifax, there are actually certain hours that they can deliver. But what we found is when staff dug into it as well, I believe even the Chamber of Commerce has in the past, is that unfortunately we're such a small community and we don't fill trucks, so we're on part of a route. So basically they're going to multiple communities and they won't build their schedule around our downtown because it's not enough business to fill their truck, is what I've been told. Is that correct, CAO Spear?
Sorry, worship, correct. We've asked that, and it's exactly right, that things fill up in Moncton and just hit the small communities on the way down to St. Stephen.
But again, on that note, like, we're seeing some reoccurring themes that when we get into the master transportation plan, these are all good conversations that we should have. Like, if we're going to make a change to deliveries, obviously we all know that that's a conversation you have in the fall or the winter, not kind of in peak tourism season. But to your point, to think that at peak time and peak season in downtown St. Andrews, half of our lane in the downtown's closed. I don't think that's ideal even for the business owner, obviously. It's definitely worth having further conversations to see if there's some type of compromise there. So very, very, very good question. Is there anything else from you, Councillor Hurdle, though, anything of that? Or?
Well, I guess I'll echo Councillor Blanchard when I say I would love to hear if there's a hybrid model of some kind that can kind of incorporate both visions. I do want to lean more into a more accessible community, more walkable community, but at the same time, I realize that there are, as Councillor Heenan said, distinct limitations on our ability to do that in downtown King Street or Water Street anyway.
Fair comments for sure, Councillor Hurdle. I just hope council's aware. I know that staff in the past has talked about kind of splitting it up between two locations in the downtown area. So half are there and half are kind of close by. But unfortunately, the market understandably wants to be all together, which I think all of us understand why they feel that way. But so yes, thank you for your input, Councillor Hurdle. And last but certainly not least, Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, well, I guess I'll echo what most of the other councillors have already said, basically. But on paper, I thought the concept was great. I really like the idea of it. But to CAO Spear's point, I had the same questions regarding, what we would do from the east end of that to Frederick Street, as far as people trying to access either the Kennedy Inn or even the apartments, to the east, that east alley, the Red Herring. I know there are some apartments there, residents living there, so I could definitely see that being a problem, having that being a one-way street. It also struck me that, as we mentioned about the deliveries, that really the whole project was basically contingent on getting those delivery trucks changed. So again, if that is not going to happen, then this kind of fell apart anyway. So, but I would agree again with Councillor Blanchard and Hurdle that, a hybrid model of some kind. I know there was mention in there about possibly expanding into even the front of the town office there. I know there's not a lot of space there, but I mean, if there was room that, could accommodate a few of the, I guess, the non-food vendors, could be an option. And then, of course, the other concern I have would be the emergency vehicles. Time you block off that street, it does create a problem as far as police, fire, ambulance, anything along those lines. So yeah, my feeling would be to agree with CAO Spear and his recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Neal. So to our CAO, Mr. Spear, we can go through a quick second round. I see a hand from Councillor Gumashall.
Just one quick point, Your Worship, and that would be to say that in terms of a hybrid model, if you just blocked off the 2 blocks from the Leather House to the Savesy, and you had 4 barricades and 1 person manned each set, or even 1 person manned both, and then they could open the gates if there was an emergency. They could also open the gates if there was a delivery that happened to come at that time. So that's your hybrid model, is to man those gates and just have it from dawn to dusk. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Gumashall. The only thing I would say on that is we would have to resend our one-way street, because anyone that came down by the Leather House would meet the same obstacle of not being able to turn right and not being allowed to turn left. We essentially, if we are going to develop a model like that, would have to accept that downtown St. Andrews is a 2-way street for the duration of the downtown. That's the only thing that we'd have to trade off. The one-way plus a barricade, unfortunately, doesn't work at the crossroads. But again, I'm hearing that it's something that council would be looking to potentially support. It might be up for further discussion.
Your Worship, I just, thank you. I think we have mobility issues with people, and again, we have to put that into the plan as well. So it might not be this year, but again, maybe for next year we can get a hybrid model that would work. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point we've gone around. CAO Spear, consensus is that the current proposal, although we are very appreciative of St. Andrews Farmers Market, and we understand that they're certainly a vibrant part of our downtown, and the more vendors we have, obviously, the better it is for obviously the vendors, but also for the residents of St. Andrews too, that enjoy going there. But unfortunately, due to King Street, basically at that point being almost a dead end, we would unfortunately at this particular time have to decline that request. But council's made it clear they have an alternative proposal. We would love to hear the opportunity as well. Now that council's considered that, I'm sure some members of council might put some thought into a model that makes sense, like Councillor Gumashall is proposing. If it's not for this summer, but for the future. So thank you, CAO Spear, for that presentation, but we've got unanimous council consent. At this point, we're going to move to Recreation and Community Services. I will pick on Councillor Blanchard.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. Reference number RCS 210602, May 20th, 2021. Heart and Stroke Foundation Proclamation Stroke Month, June of 2021. So the background for that is Stroke Awareness Month was created by the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. And for over 60 years, they have dedicated June to educating Canadians about the importance of fighting heart disease and stroke, thus helping to save lives and improve the quality of life for many. What is a stroke? A stroke happens when blood stops flowing to any part of your brain, damaging brain cells. The effects of a stroke depend on the part of the brain that was damaged and the amount of damage done. More than 400,000 Canadians are living with long-term disabilities from the effects of a stroke. The numbers call for us to educate more people about potential risk of being diagnosed with this disease, especially women. Stroke disproportionately affects women, with 59% of stroke deaths occurring in the female population. It is important to share that we have made a lot of advancements in diagnosing and treating stroke patients. However, it is also important to educate the ways to prepare if this disease was to occur, and with knowledge, we can better protect ourselves and our loved ones. Should I read the motion out then, Your Worship?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Motion is that council proclaim the month of June 2021 to be Stroke Awareness Month in the town of St. Andrews.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. I'll look for a seconder for that motion. I see Councillor Blumenthal's hand. You guys are quick. I appreciate it. At this point, is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the proclamation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that is unanimous. So I will at this time read the proclamation where it is for the Heart and Stroke Foundation Stroke Month, which is June 2021. The proclamation reads, whereas the effects of heart disease and stroke are responsible for the widespread suffering and create serious hardship in our community, and whereas the Heart and Stroke Foundation of New Brunswick is taking positive action to reduce disability and death from heart disease and stroke through 1, a planned and priority research program to save lives, 2, a public and professional heart health promotion program to prevent disease, and 3, supporting people living with heart disease and stroke to promote recovers. And whereas the Heart and Stroke Foundation of New Brunswick's annual person-to-person campaign is being conducted during the month of June. And now, therefore, I, Brad Henderson, Mayor of the town of St. Andrews, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2021 a stroke month in the town of St. Andrews, and urge all citizens to cooperate in the Stroke Month drive and call civic, social, and fraternal organizations and businesses establishments to give this campaign the greatest possible support. In witness whereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of mayoralty of the town of St. Andrews to be affixed here too. And I will sign that from Mayor Brad Henderson, and we'll have our senior administrator clerk, Paul Knopper, sign that as well. So thank you very much, council, for that. All right. Jumping back to the agenda.
Chiller.
I see that at this particular time, yes, we will have, we'll pass it back over to CAO Spear to talk about chiller replacement at the WC O'Neill Arena. And you're on mute. You were not mute at O Canada. That's the good news, Mike.
That's right.
Couldn't let you go a whole meeting without bringing that up.
You're welcome, St. Andrews. Now you know I never appeared on The Voice. So council, we had a technician in earlier this summer or the spring, just as the arena closed, to do kind of an overview of the whole system. The arena was built in 1970, I believe, and it then commissioned. The arena and the curling shed was the two first proponents of it. One of the units is called a chiller, and the chiller is filled with ammonia. And ammonia is a very hazardous gas, but it's common in commercial refrigeration units. And it's used to super chill brine water, so salt water, that basically runs through the cement of floor of both the hockey arena and the curling arena and freeze the ice. And so that unit, if it breaks down, the whole arena is going to be out of business during the winter. So the technician was down and he looked at it and it's tagged. He says the unit's 28 years old, and as far as he's concerned, it's 5 years past what its recommended life is. The unit is not showing any visible signs of malfunctioning, but there are cases where it'll be working fine, and there's certain tests you can do on a monthly basis where you look at test the oil to see if any ammonia is leaking into the oil, and pay attention to the pressures and things to make sure they're all going. But we could go from basically from 100 miles an hour to zero, like hitting a brick wall. And so we do have concerns and wanted to present that risk to you, but also included with your report was information from
BC.
BC. I should remember the name of the location where they that plant had signs. They were kind of putting off fixing a pipe, but unfortunately the system failed and caused the death of 3 individuals. And so just to show you that if you have a serious malfunction, we have alarms and warnings to let staff know this happens. But if you happen to be in that end of the arena, you probably don't have enough physical time to get out of there. So from staff's perspective, the recommendation is there's $75,000 to replace it. It's going to have to be done the next year or two. Usually we'd put this off, but you risk not being able to run the ice plant, plus the risk to health. Earlier this year, we were given $97,000 from the province of New Brunswick as part of the COVID recovery fund to help offset the costs from last year. We've already showing a small surplus from last year. So this is all just, use the word loosely, found money, but it's money that we hadn't budgeted for. So we could use that. I mean, the money can be used for whatever we want. In theory, it wasn't really meant for something like that, but it's going to add to our surplus that we could put against that equipment. A second part I really should touch on too, the chiller's kind of optional but recommended. But the reason the technician was down was to overhaul the compressors, which was budgeted. But when he got them apart, they're in much worse shape than he thought. And he basically told us there's no sense of putting them back together. And there's about $20,000 required on those compressors over and above our budget to repair them and get them back. We've got to do those. So we hope to, if council's okay, the next meeting we get together, we'll create a motion that'll allow us to overspend our authority within that line budget item. And then to discuss about the chillers, what you're doing for a risk, and if you want to take that on, or if you, and talk about it at budget time, or if you want to take it face now and go for it. The other issue we have with the chillers is it's a 10 to 12 from order to delivery date. And so if something happens in the fall, for instance, we wouldn't get going until the new year, or heaven forbid, if it broke down during hockey season, we'd probably be shut down until next fall. Thank you, Worship. I'll take any questions if council likes.
Perfect. And it looks like there's a chance of a private organization perhaps giving a small grant to help offset some of this cost as well, should we decide to pursue it. So obviously, just to summarize, we have some concerns over the age of this, although there's no immediate threat, it appears. The reality is it's 2 things. Is it's past its probably life cycle. If it does go down, it will likely knock our ice out for the entire winter, the remainder of the winter. And B, the more important one is a potential, as this goes on over time, the chances of a health risk actually coming as a result of this, a serious one, goes up. So at this particular point, I wanted to open up the floor for any further questions or comments from member of council. We won't go around the table, but I'll open it up for everyone to have the opportunity to speak once. And I see Councillor Blanchard's hand first.
Yeah. I guess if I'm able to make a comment as well, I have a couple questions.
Excuse me, sorry, Councillor Blunt, just going to interrupt for a second. Anyone that's not speaking, can you put your microphones on mute? We're starting to get a lot of echo at our end. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Blanchard. My apologies.
Oh, no worries at all. Well, as far as a comment, I'm fully supportive of actually moving forward with the replacement now. I don't know, we're talking about a system that, should it fail, could result in losing an entire season in the arena, but more importantly, I think could, potentially result in a loss of life. So I wouldn't want to take that risk, and I wouldn't want to be associated with anything like that. So I think if we are made aware of an issue, I think we should act on it. I do have a question as to why the unit, if it's 5 years past its life, why are we only having an inspection done just this past year? Why wasn't something done previously, and then perhaps a budget could have been included in it as a budget item? So that would be my first question. I'll hold off. I've got a couple more questions potentially through your worship to the CAO, to staff. I guess I do have a question about the potential life expectancy for the new chiller. That would be a second question. And then we talked about $75K essentially as a price tag to replenish or replace, but there was some additional costs, I guess, or potentially savings that were also listed in that report. I talked about existing parts being reused, demolition of concrete pad, new brine charge, things like that, but they didn't provide an additional cost to that. So I'm just curious, as far as a worst case scenario, I guess for staff, step 75K seemed to cover that, but then, sorry, the chiller itself. But then there was those additional things. So I'm just wondering if those additional things actually were to cost us as well, what would be the potential worst case scenario for the system? I've got a couple more questions, but maybe I'll put it through your worship to staff to see if they can provide that information, or see what they can do with that. Thanks.
Thanks. I'll pass it back over to staff.
Thank you, Worship. So the first question about why we just determined the life of that chiller was essentially, we lost a key staff member last October who retired, and we relied on him. And so the rest of us really didn't know much about the equipment in there. So we brought in a technician to do a full overview of everything. And that's truthfully the reason why we did it. It's probably something that should be done at least every 5 to 10 years anyway, that someone comes in that can look at it and look for any problems that could occur. So that's why, but now we've got a great idea, not just on the chiller, but of several pieces of the equipment. It's a complicated system that goes into that. This past council has invested in it too, with new electrical things and major investment in that. So it's an ongoing concern to Arena, but we have done several investments in the past. But the overall ice plant is probably the one that's going to need the most investment over the next 10 years, because that's probably the last thing that we fixed. When I started in 2004, even the floor of the main arena was replaced. And so that's good. Worst case scenario, from what I understand, it's 75,000. What we do, if council's okay with it, we won't order it, but what we'll do is go back to the vendors. There's only 2 of them that can supply this, and ask them for a final cost and bring it back to you at our next time we meet for a motion to proceed with that. And then you'll get those questions answered. And as always, if you get your council package and you have further questions like that, give us a call or something prior to the meeting night, even, so we can get the information. We'd rather get the information to you before the meeting instead of following up with you after. So if council ever has questions after getting the meeting, please reach out. We'll either supply it to you or add some more information in between. So we're giving you just as much, so you're ready and with all the information you need to make a good decision.
Thank
But
you.
right now, from what I understand, 75, I think, is the worst case scenario, but we'll have to confirm that.
Okay.
But thank you, Mr. Spear, and just for council, that we have a fairly detailed asset management plan for the town of St. Andrew. So the arena is certainly an asset that we're going to see it that needs a significant amount of investment to continue. Obviously, we know it has a good roof now that's been replaced, but unfortunately there's more work to be done. So we'll dive into all that, obviously asset and many more to see what else is up in the next, and I guess our foreseeable future. I think Councilor Blanchard, you had more questions though.
Yeah, just a supplemental. Thank you, Your Worship. Just through you to the CAO. One additional part, I guess it included, the report talked about was the brine filtration system. Just looking for information. I know it was an additional, 2.8 to 3.3K, I guess I have here. Just wondering about the what that additional piece would do. Does it impact the efficiency of the unit, or could it actually extend the life history of the unit? So that was just an additional question. And I appreciate the comment, Mr. Spears, the CAO, about asking things prior to the meeting. That just sort of me, my learning curve here as a new councillor. So I appreciate that, and I will take you up on that offer, I'm sure, in the future. Thank you, Your Worship.
And I guess that this is going to be one of those cases where if you'd asked me the question this morning, I could have gotten a technical answer for you. But the brine system itself, we've had it looked at a couple of times in the last few years and had some adjustments. But this would stop some of the leakages we're seeing and potentially increase the efficiency of it. And it does get dirty if, it's salt water going through steel pipes or metal pipes. And so there tends to get some oxidization and stuff. And so sometimes you have to clean that stuff up in order to ensure that you don't get breakages, because that stuff is completely engrossed in cement. So if you ever get a leak, which we did at the curling club earlier this year, you have to go in and chip around it, replace it, and then reseal it in. Not impossible, but not the funnest thing you ever had to do.
Thank you. Thank you. And is that good for you, Councillor Blanchard? Okay, perfect. Any other questions from any other councillors? Councillor Heenan.
Okay. Safety, of course, is my first priority. So after you deal with the safety issue of this chiller, we also have to deal with the fact that we have residents here who are avid curlers. I am not one, so it's not in interest to me, but we have people who are avid curlers, and they've been interrupted, shall we say, COVID interrupted for 2 years. If we go and we start our season off next year, let's say, and this happens, I mean, it's not a good thing for the town. It's not good. We can't bring in bonspiels. We can't bring in anything. I think it's an economic requirement that we look into getting a new one. That's just my opinion. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Any other members of council? If not, I'm just going to do Councillor Neal.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question for CAO Spear. With the 10 to 12 week delivery and installation time, I'm assuming then that this is something we need to make a decision on fairly quickly, obviously, as the arena season would be starting usually start of October and September. So
Yeah, we have a second meeting, and I would say the July 5th meeting would be the absolute latest, but if now that council's interested, we'll get some more information together, and probably at the next time we meet, have a special meeting. So if we get the approval, we can put our order in right away so that there's no interruption to the regular hockey startup at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's a great question or comment, Councillor Neal. So if by chance this is going to delay the season, I don't think any of us mind jumping on a quick call if a formal motion's needed. But so that's a great point, Councillor Neal. We don't want council to be any reason to why this is delayed with starting the season for all the people who love it. So any other councillor at this point? Otherwise, I'm just going to get some consensus quickly. I think the compressor goes without saying, but I will put them together. Just looking for council's basically consensus that we believe we should this year replace the chiller and the compressor for the 2021 budget year. So all those in favor of doing that, I know it's not an official motion, just please raise your hand quickly so I get consensus. Anyone think that we should defer the project? Okay, we've got everybody raising their hands. So everybody in council would like to see this. Obviously, you had us at public safety, so we'd like to see this. We'd like to see this done this year. So anything we can do to expedite that process, Mr. Spear, please let us know. We appreciate it. Okay, so
Thank you, Mr. Spear.
Okay, so
Thank you,
at that
council.
point, there's nothing under planning and economic development, nothing under new business. Question period, Mr. Knopper, did we receive any questions from the public this evening?
Your Worship, I have not received any questions via email or no request to speak directly to council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper. So question period, we'll move on from that. At this point, we will open it up. We'll call you individually, just raise your hand. It's councillors and deputy mayor's comments. So anyone have anything they'd wish to add at this point? All right, so I'm seeing none. You must think there's a hockey game on tonight or something like that, eh? At this point, just mayor's comment, I'll keep it very brief. Just so everyone's aware, normally we would do committee meeting the last Monday of the month. There is an orientation training that evening that a number of you are registered. So just want to throw the date of Tuesday, June 29th at everybody. Just we will defer that by one night just so you can attend the orientation for those that wish to. Mr. Knopper will send that out unless someone has a major concern over that date. I think we can just go ahead with bumping it back one night. Seeing no major concerns, so that's good. And just thank you to staff for today, for the 6 p.m. today. A lot of work goes to putting those ceremonies together. It was good to see former mayors there. It was good to see both levels of government with MP Williamson and MLA Baucus there. Good to see our local RCMP there to support the event. And good to see so many members of the public come out in the heat. But anyway, we really appreciate it. I really think that, no disrespect to how we did it 5 years ago in the theater, I think the courthouse is a wonderful backdrop for such a ceremony, and we appreciate you making that special for both us and our families. So thank you on that. At this particular time, as we amended the agenda, we will be going to closed session. And that again would be due to under the Local Governance Act, Section 68(1)(c). So I'll be looking for a motion to go to closed session at this time. I see Councillor Gumashell, and then I see a seconder, Councillor Neal. All in favor of going to closed session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody. So we'll give Mr. Knopper a moment here to get us off Facebook. And for those that were watching public, appreciate it. Motion to come out of closed session. Councillor Gumashall first, Councillor Neil second. All in favor of coming out of closed?
Aye.
Aye.
That is everybody. We are now out of closed session. Are you ready for me to proceed with the adjournment, Councillor, Mr. Knopper? We, at this particular time, will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councillor Akaji, as always.
As always.
Seconder. Councillor Neal's
Wanna go
pretty
home.
quick. Councillor Neal's pretty quick, so we have two. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
And we are out and able to watch the hockey game. Thank you very much. Or just over 2 hours with closed session. We're going to try to keep it close to that 2 hours, guys. Thanks again for tonight. Thanks to staff, and enjoy your evening, and we'll do this all over again soon.